In this video, I'll show you what it's like to drive one of the most scenic routes in the world, the Icefields Parkway in the Canadian Rockies. I'll show you some of the best places to stop and what they're like, as well as some of the local wildlife you might spot as you drive the route. The Icefields Parkway is just over 230 kilometers in length and it runs from Lake Louise to Jasper. First on my list is a visit to the second tallest waterfall in Canada, and that is Takakawa Falls in Yoho National Park. On arrival, you'll find lots of free parking available. They also have pit toilets, they also have a picnic area if you want to have some food and drink while you visit. You can visit the falls between June and October. Out with these times, or out with these months, the access road is closed off. So please make sure before you visit that the road is open and you can access the falls. Best time to see the sort of most amount of water coming over the falls is mid-June. It's a 1.4 kilometre round trip from the parking lot to the falls and back. The surface, as you can see here, is really good. It's wheelchair and stroller friendly, and it's only a slight elevation gain of 36 metres. There are also additional hikes you can do, there's campgrounds available, and you'll find information and signs like this that will guide you to these. As you make your way to the falls, you'll pass these information signs, which just gives you some background information in terms of the ice field and the glacier that feeds the falls. You'll also come across this 3D model which shows the Yoho Valley, the falls, the glacier and ice field. The word Takakawa actually means magnificent, and when you see the falls you'll understand why they chose that name. Once you've crossed the river, the path does narrow a bit, but as you can see the surface is still really good, just this sort of slight uphill gradient. As I mentioned, these are the second tallest falls in all of Canada, and when you have a large body of water dropping over an almost 300 metre vertical drop, it does create some spray, and you can see the spray just in the air here. It's nothing too significant, it's not like you need a waterproof jacket or anything, and actually on a nice sunny day like we had, it's quite refreshing. And that's me arrived at the base of the falls, or as close as I was willing to get. You can go further, and some people do. Just bear in mind with the spray you are going to get a bit wet. Then it was back on the road for a short 35-minute drive to our next destination. Apologies for the jumpy camera movement in this one. Yes, my wife did get a bit excited seeing the bear. We were fortunate to see 3 bears while we travelled up and down the Icefields Parkway. This was the first one, and keep watching to see the other 2. This one was obviously just out for a stroll along the side of the highway. Our next stop was Herbert Lake. This was only a brief stop for us, 15 to 30 minutes. There is free parking on site, there's pit toilets, there's a loop around the lake, there's a hike around the lake. This is also one of the warmer lakes in Banff National Park, so if you want to swim, this is probably the one to choose. You could also kayak, canoe, there's campgrounds, so there's lots to do. Obviously, if you are bringing your own watercraft, obviously you need a permit to bring it and use it in the water. My next stop was only a 25-minute drive north from Herbert Lake to Bow Lake. Lots of free parking available, as well as pit toilets. You can see here it's not a paved surface, it's a kind of gravel surface, but it is very flat. You can see from the parking lot to the lodge at Bow Lake, which is the red roof building you can see ahead. It is less than a 10-minute walk, and obviously the lake is just next to that. So in terms of stroller and wheelchair accessibility, yes, it's not this sort of ultra smooth path, but it is accessible. The lodge at Bow Lake is named after one of the earliest guides in the Rockies, Jimmy Simpson. Best time to visit Bow Lake is between June and September. However, you can still visit in the winter. The lake freezes over and you'll see people doing ice skating, for example. Bow Lake Lodge also has a provision store where you can buy food, drinks, snacks. They have an outdoor seating area. They also sell souvenirs. You can buy maps and books. They also have quite a cool display of ancient items, such as these very old skis and ski poles here. They also have accommodation available at Bow Lake Lodge. They have 16 rooms and one suite. And just an example of a price for September, and one of the rooms started at 970 Canadian dollars per night. I will include a link to the website in the description below. If you're feeling energetic, then you can take a hike around the lake. You can hike to Glacier Falls, which feeds the lake. If, like us, you don't have time for the hike, it's only a couple of minutes walk from the lodge itself down to the lakeside. If you do stay at the lodge, then this could be your view when you wake up in the morning. Yeah, really stunning. Like many of the lakes in the Rockies, the views all around are simply stunning. It was on the way to this stop that we encountered bear number 2, just taking a casual stroll across the highway. Only a 5-minute drive north from Bow Lake, we come to the next stop, which is another stunning lake, and this one is Peyto Lake. It's often pronounced Peyto Lake, so please let me know in the comments below if I'm getting it right, but I believe the correct pronunciation is Peyto Lake. This is a very popular destination. I believe the 3rd most visited lake in all of Canada. Huge free parking lot. And just a tip for disabled visitors, you can continue further up the hill when you come off the Icefields Parkway. You go to the sort of coach parking, and that brings you out at the top of, it's only about 10 minutes from the parking lot, but it's uphill to the actual lookout. So if you go to the second car park, it takes you out further up the hill, if you like. So it's much easier if you have a stroller or if you have a disability. As I mentioned, it's only a short 10-minute walk, 700 metres from the parking lot to Peyto Lake Lookout. You can also go to Bow Summit Lookout, which is 3.1 kilometres. It is all uphill to the Peyto Lake Lookout, but you can see here the surface is really good. And after that 700 metre hike, you'll arrive at the dedicated lookout point, which you'll see in a second really does give an amazing view of Peyto Lake. Yes, it is quite busy, but to be honest, I didn't have any issues getting a nice spot to overlook the lake, to capture some photos and some video. I think you'll agree that that is a stunning view, isn't it? So that's Peyto Lake, fed by Peyto Glacier, which comes from the Sunwapta icefield. Also at the lookout point, you'll find information on the lake, on the glacier. You'll also find information on the person the lake is named after, similar to Bow Lake. Peyto Lake is named after one of the pioneers, one of the earliest mountain guides in the Rockies. And this, you can see sat here, is Bill Peyto. You'll also find some information that helps you understand why he was nicknamed Wild Bill. From here you'll also find signage that will guide you from Peyto Lake Summit to Bow Summit Viewpoint. Next stop is only 20 minutes further north, and it's Mistaya Canyon. Again, free parking just off the highway here. It's not a huge parking lot, and I can imagine on a busy sort of bank holiday weekend, space could be at a premium. It's a 1.4 kilometre round trip down to the canyon viewpoint with a 60 metre elevation gain. The surface does start off quite smooth, but then quickly turns into this quite rocky surface. You can see the person here in front struggling to negotiate the path. So unfortunately for this one, I wouldn't recommend strollers and wheelchairs. You'll also find information posted on various other hikes that you can take. You come across this sign that gives you information on the canyon, how the force of the water carves out the rock, which is one of the attractions of the canyon, as you'll see just in a minute. It's impressive to see just over time how the water has carved out this amazing path through the canyon. In the distance there you can see people on the rocks, obviously just trying to get a better view. So you can continue over the bridge and then just continue the hike for a few more minutes, and you do get into that area, Obviously just be mindful, you know, some people were getting really close to the edge to get a really good picture, but you don't need to go that close to the edge to get just an alternative view of the canyon looking back towards the bridge. Then it was back in the car 5 minutes further north and we stopped for some food and drink at the Saskatchewan River crossing. Before I tell you a bit more about this stop, just a couple of things on the Icefields Parkway itself. It's almost 240 kilometres and it runs from Lake Louise to Jasper. Just bear in mind, for most of the route you won't have cell phone signal and your GPS won't work. There's also limited stops. This is one of the limited stops on the route where you will get fuel and you'll get food and drink. So definitely something to plan is fuel and food and drink ahead of your trip, especially if, like us, you're driving the full length of the Icefield Parkway. Okay, so back to this stop, and I mentioned you can get fuel here. They also have a grocery store, they have a motel, they have a pub, and they have a restaurant. This is the main stop for food and drink, and it's a huge parking lot. So they do have a proper sit-down a la carte restaurant. They also have a diner just attached. This is where we decided to eat our lunch. And the food, we thought the food was good. We had burger and chips and chicken and chips, but they do have quite an extensive range of diner type food. Service was really good. There was good availability for tables. Here you can see an example of the menu and the prices. And this is where lunch, it wasn't the healthiest lunch as you can see, but you're on vacation, and when you're on vacation, yeah, you can relax a bit. Next up, it was a 45-minute drive north, and this was probably my favourite thing to do during my trip on the Icefields Parkway, and that was a hike to the toe of the Athabasca Glacier you can see here. You can visit lots of waterfalls, suspension bridges, gondolas, etc., and they really are impressive in themselves. This was just something different for me, something really special, and like I say, I would highly recommend stopping at the Athabasca Glacier, which is located at the Columbia Icefield Centre. If you didn't know, the Icefield is like the frozen lake and the glacier is like a frozen river that runs out of the lake. I have to confess, I didn't know this until I used the Guide Along app, which is something we purchased to help us as we navigated the Icefields Parkway. Remember I said your GPS won't work? This app, I can't recommend this app highly enough. I'm not being paid or sponsored by the app. It's just, after using it myself, I just found it invaluable, and for $19.99 I just think it was money well spent. The information they give, as well as obviously guiding you and telling you when the next location is coming up, etc., is just invaluable. And we used it for travelling from Lake Louise up to Jasper and back down again. So really, again, I can highly recommend this. We certainly found it really enjoyable, not only watching the amazing scenery, visiting the places, but the background information as well. So as you arrive with the Columbia Icefield Centre on your right, you'll see a road down to your left, and this is a road that takes you down to the parking lot at the toe of the Athabasca Glacier. They do have pit toilets here, and they have a reasonable sized parking lot, but this is quite a popular one, so it was quite busy when we visited. The actual hike to the toe of the glacier takes about 15 minutes. It is uphill, it is quite rocky, unfortunately this one definitely not accessible for strollers or people with mobility problems. It starts off relatively flat, as you can see here, and then it does ramp up a bit, and then it's just a steady sort of gradual climb to the summit. I don't normally feel the cold, but for this one it is cold. There's a biting wind. And yeah, for this one I would recommend you do take a jacket. I even had a woolly hat on. You'll see in the video that there's a person here, for example, coming towards me that's just got shorts and t-shirts on, but yeah, I would recommend definitely taking or be prepared for a cold, chilly wind. And we visited in mid-June and it was still quite cold. On the way up, you will pass these signs that indicate where the glacier used to be. Here we can see where it was back in 1992. You don't actually get to go right to the toe of the glacier. This is how far you get to go. There's a sort of small fence up, but you do get the impression of the sort of scale of it. What you can also do, and what you can see in the distance here, are people actually out walking on the glacier, and they're taken from the Columbia Icefield Centre in these large buses, off-road sort of type vehicles. You can just see two passing here in the distance. So these are the off-road bus type vehicles you just saw there, and you can see people out walking on the glacier. We didn't actually do this, we just felt the glacier is something that should just be left untouched. However, each to their own. It does seem very popular, and obviously this is the website for the centre. It gives you an idea of prices. You know, you're looking at about $128 for an adult. If you go after 3:30, then there is discounts, and there's various packages you can buy as well. You'll find all this information at the Columbia Icefield Centre. So that was the Athabasca Glacier, something I'll never forget, just really impressive. And now for something completely different, and you can see it on the left here sticking out of the side of the mountain, and it's the Columbia Icefield Skywalk. For this one you need to buy your tickets from the Icefield Centre, and you can only travel there by one of their shuttle buses, so you can't drive to this location. It's around 10 minutes in the bus, and then when you arrive you have a 1 kilometer walk along the side of the mountain until you eventually get to the sort of main viewing point. There's only one main building when you arrive, and it's just on your left here you can see. So here you've got toilet facilities. There was also some guides on hand that are available to give you information about the skywalk. And you're free just to meander along this 1 kilometer stretch along the side of the mountain until you get to the main viewing area you'll see in a minute. As you make your way along, you'll come across information points like this, and here you can have a guide that's on hand, information on the rocks, on wildlife, so yeah, feel free to stop there if you wish. We're in Canada, and when you're in the Rockies, and yeah, you can't be in the Rockies without some kind of link to bears. So here we can see some information on the bears. There's also information posted about the construction of the facility that you're about to see, just to give you some reassurance, because if you weren't already aware, a large section of this has a glass floor. Like many popular places, you can see here it's quite busy. There's a lot of people taking their selfies, setting up tripods, etc. I still found space to, admire the views around. It was quite busy, as you can see here, and trying to negotiate the people that are setting up their tripods, etc. It can spoil it a bit, so just be prepared. This was kind of late on the day, and it's still quite busy in this particular bit. Everybody obviously wants to go to this point. You do get some impressive views though. If you're not keen on heights, then obviously just don't look down, and you can still enjoy the views. I will be honest, and you can feel the structure move just ever so slightly under your feet. I guess it's designed that way so it's not too rigid, so not to put anyone off, just something to be aware of. Although we did enjoy the visit, we felt the skywalk was overpriced at $45 each for what it was. Then we spotted our third bear just off the highway, this time a brown black bear. Next on my list is one we did on the way back down from Jasper, and the reason for that is the parking lot is only accessible from the southbound carriageway. And this one is called Tangle Falls. So there is a large car park, and there's actually a second car park you can see just in the distance. There is pit toilets. Just bear in mind for this one, you do park at one side of the road and you have to cross on foot over to the base of the falls. This is just a quick stop. It's just a very picturesque waterfall, as you can see. I also believe in the winter it freezes over, and it looks equally stunning in the winter. Next stop is only 30 minutes away, and it's another waterfall. This time, albeit it's significantly larger than Tangle Falls. Again, free parking, pit toilets. For this one, there's the upper falls and lower falls. The upper falls are only a short walk from the parking lot. We decided to go to the lower falls. A 1.3 kilometer hike to the lower falls viewpoint bridge, and you can see here the surface is good, so it is accessible for strollers and those with mobility issues. I think a lot of people go to the upper falls here because, as you can see on the lower falls bridge viewpoint, it wasn't that busy. It wasn't a great day, of course, but from here you do get a really nice view back of the falls, and this sort of the small island in the middle just makes them extra special. You can, if you wish, just beside the entrance to the bridge, you can descend down this area here, and it'll just give you a closer view of the falls. Just bear in mind it is quite steep, a lot of tree roots exposed, and on a wet day like we had when we visited, just be careful underfoot here. But it does get you, as you'll see in a second, it does get you a lot closer to the falls. I always find when I visit some of these waterfalls, just the amount and the force of the water that just continually cascades over them is just very impressive. Last but not least, our final stop, Athabasca Falls. Lots of free parking here, there's pit toilets, and to access the falls viewing point, it's only a 5-minute walk from the parking lot. So this location is definitely stroller and mobility issue friendly, so no issues here. And after 5 minutes you'll arrive at a series of these viewing points, and some of them get you really close to the falls. You really get to appreciate the force and the power of the water. So maybe not one of the tallest waterfalls that you'll come across, but what it lacks in height, it certainly makes up in power. I really do hope you've enjoyed the video, found the information useful. If you have, please consider hitting a thumbs up and like the video. I would really appreciate that. And if you can consider subscribing as well so you don't miss any future content. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.